a star, you're not looking for the best wrestler. You're not necessarily looking for the best looking wrestler. Like you said, there's a recipe. You need a few attributes to make a star. So yeah, you do need somebody with the athletic prowess and physical wherewithal to put on exciting matches.
Okay.
And aesthetics matter. You know, Braun Strowman, I'm sure he thinks he's a good-looking guy, but he might not be traditionally what you would figure the most handsome guy, but he's a very manly, big bearded giant of a man. Aesthetically, when he walks into a room, oh wow.
Right.
I think in this day and age, this is a digital age, this is the media age, but professional wrestling has always been about talking people into the building.
Yes.
Talking people into watching.
Right.
And that is a characteristic that you can't do without. The star has to be able to captivate a crowd, to talk to them, to develop a relationship with them. So, charisma, you know, professional wrestling is a narcissistic business.
Yes.
You have to have a certain level of confidence if you want to perform at the top. And everybody wants to be at the top, or at least, you know, I can't speak for everybody, but I know my philosophy was, why are you lacing up your boots if you don't at least want to try to be the main event? Everybody can't be the main event, you know. But don't you want to try to be there? You know, and you have to have a certain level of confidence to be able to get in there, and you put all of that together, and I think that's the perfect makings of a star. But but there does have to be, in my opinion, there does have to be a certain level of humility.
Okay. Now, I'm sorry to cut you off, but this leads into CT's favorite portion of MVP's career. You taking that quality as you have, taking it to TNA, and how did that come about? Because you were captivating as hell on the mic during that time frame.
I mean, what you guys created with BDC, honestly, I think it's very underrated. I think they had a lot, probably from outside looking in, probably had a lot of elements of you in there, and it seemed authentic. You know, I think that it created Bobby's best run of his career. You know, I think there was a lot attributed to that era. So I was curious as to how you approached wrestling at that time and how that came about.
That was a very fun time period for while it lasted. The way that came about, low key. This is his new t-shirt. Pick it up now at lowkey.com. That's LOW-KI.com. Order one, buy one. It's cool as hell, and it's not that cheap material. It's that nice plush cotton. It drapes just right. Yeah, order 2 or 3 of them. We have always had this saying, like in pro wrestling, like, what's better than making money with your friends?
Okay. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, you gotta work. Unless you're rich, everybody gotta work. So if you gotta work, man, why not work and make money with people you like, you know?
Yeah.
So as things worked out at the time, I had returned from Japan, took a year off, and schedule-wise, TNA offered me a spectacular deal, and I said, all right, you know, WWE told me the door was open for me to come back one day, so I said, all right, let me take this route, and we had a talk about creatively some things that we would be willing to do, and I'll give credit where it's due. They were allowing a lot of people at that time to really contribute creatively in the direction. They were really open to suggestions and ideas, and they were very open to my suggestions and ideas for what we were doing with the group. And it came about because they used to see us hanging together all the time. Every time we see these, you know, they're hanging out together. Especially in Japan, when we went and did the show, when Impact went over to Japan, one of the writers was saying, man, every time I look up, I see Joe and Key an MVP.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we like, yeah, man. If we're just hanging out and having, let's do something with it. So I pitched the idea of. Well, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't pitch the idea, but we talked about an idea of doing a thing where Bobby gets kicked out, and with the group transitions. Because officially, I didn't want to have a name. We all agreed, me, Kenny, and Bobby. We didn't want to have a name for the group. Okay. Somehow it became MLK.
I mean,
and Kenny was the one that actually came up with the name. Because they wanted, now they wanted our faction to have a name.
Okay.
And we were trying to come up with something, and we were Sam Roberts. Shout out to Sam. He
really?
Yeah, we were on his show.
Okay.
Me, Key, Homicide, and Joe.
All right.
And we were all just talking about how we all came up in the Indies around the same time. We were boys, And Sam Roberts said, so basically, you guys are like the Wu-Tang of pro wrestling. Boom. Like, yes, we are. The way I had it figured, Low Key is the Jizza. Of course, Homicide is ODB. I had Joe in as Raekwon.
Okay.
And, I'm Tony Stark's the Iron Man, I got it.
Ghost.
But off of that, we came up and Kenny was like, oh man, what about like Beatdown Clan? I was like, man, that has a little ring to it, man. Beatdown Clan, BBC. And it worked, and then we came up with from the influences of me and Low Key and Joe being in Japan, the idea with the Oni mask and the whole samurai, and it all came together and it worked,
Yeah, it was definitely a moment for TNA at the time, and that's what you want, is the things that you can remember, and that was a moment. You were real. You said nigga on TV. Like, it was crazy.
now us as
my favorite is like Low Key and Kid, because they didn't know I was gonna do that.
Okay.
That was one of those things where I was like, man, I'm just gonna ask for forgiveness instead of permission. So they had no idea what I was gonna do that.
So,
and you see Kenny in the background go.
You know how hard it is to find that clip on YouTube? We had to do some digging to find that, man. They try to scrub that from the thing. Now, as creatives, how liberating is that to because we're, as artists, we're sensitive about our shit. You know what I mean? So, like, how liberating is it to have your influence, to have your vision, and for it to have resignation through the years of being.
It's incredibly rewarding because again, like Kenny and I became friends, and Joe and Key, we had been friends.
Okay.
So at this point, like, man, this is great. Like, me and my boys got a faction, and we got ideas, and they're hearing us out, and it's working, and again, anytime I've been very fortunate in my career. I got the gift of gab. So everywhere I've been, they've always given me the mic, and they've just said, hey, man, here's what we want. Go say this the way you would say. And, I had that kind of freedom, and I'm grateful for that. For whatever, creative headbutting and management, issues that transpired there in the end. For that period, the relationship was really cool because, they let us have fun. And I think everybody else had fun too, because people always say like, "Oh, that was one of the best times for that show."
I wanted to ask real quick. Prior, you run with WWE, you had a moment with WrestleMania Angle, a WrestleMania run where you're gonna face Chris Benoit, and he wasn't there. How did you manage to build a whole angle on your own practically? Do you remember that time? And like, because he was injured at the time.
And it's funny, man, because until Chris mentioned it to me, I didn't remember that whole build-up. I hadn't thought about it in so long. But I remember, working with the writing department, and they were doing a thing where each week they brought out some made-up world champion from different places, and I'm, BT Bukabongo. I think that was D-Ray.
Can't pull it off today.
And Johnny Gargano.
Yeah, he was
Was
Yeah,
Cedric
yeah,
von
yeah.
Hausen from
Yeah.
Liechtenstein or something. Yeah, there's a few of them, you know. So, thinking back now, it was so incredibly cool that they put that kind of trust in me because I was just off the indies and
Right.
Vince was like, "No, this kid, I like what he can do, so let's give him an opportunity." So they just kept putting the mic in my hand, and that's a huge investment. They're giving you TV time. They're
Yes,
gonna give you
yeah.
the mic
Yes,
and say, "Go
right,
out there."
Right.
And I was very fortunate.
That's still
again.
that's the timing. Like
Yeah.
that's.
I would sit down with the writers, and the writers would say, "Okay, here's what we want for this segment. Now we can't, obviously write for you, but just here's bullet points, get a general idea. We look at it, and then I said, okay, this is mine. And then I would just go out there and make it MVP."
So we want to go ahead and pivot that into what's probably going to be the closing of the interview. You spoke on it, and it led up to this point. The ingredients for making a star. You just spoke on how you've always had the ability to be able for someone to invest in you with TV time as far as mic time. Is that, do you work? We love black wrestlers, and we don't see the opportunities in the business given to guys like you or Booker in the past 25. New Day just now kind of has preceded themselves into that realm. When it comes to star making ability, how can we get more of us in that limelight?
Now, I think the first thing that popped into my head at that moment was Tyler Perry. Didn't he just drop a bunch of money to build some studios in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Tyler Perry said, "Hey, I'm going to start making movies the way I want to make them for who I want to make them for." And, people get really sensitive about, issues of race and culture, but there are certain things that, you have Bollywood. Those movies are made for people from India primarily who speak that language and who are accustomed to that. Everybody creatively, makes something that resonates culturally
To them.
to them. So I don't see any issue. I remember years ago you had Urban Wrestling Alliance, where you had go look that up, go find that. You had
I'ma Google
it was with
that.
the Rough Riders, and you had wrestlers coming out aligned with hip hop, and you had a DJ was playing the entrance music, and people were coming out. The problem with that, as I recall, was that it was a very TV. There were no wrestling people behind the show. They brought in some wrestling people, but you had writers kind of, trying to turn actors into wrestlers. And you had a lot of wrestlers involved, and there was a lot of potential, but it just didn't quite. But to answer that question, hip hop and wrestling is awesome. So, boom. For that, do what we've always done.
Create our own.
And if you look at the landscape of professional wrestling, it's becoming a very do-it-yourself
Yes.
thing. I mean, WWE is the empire. They are the global brand of recognized professional wrestling. But now there's been a renaissance. You've got all these other companies popping up. The indies are busier than they've ever been. Like, there's a resurgence of wrestling, and there's good wrestling everywhere. We can debate, what's good and what's bad. We can debate this generation versus that generation. But at the end of the day, if you enjoy wrestling, just watch it. And, do you like burgers or do you like McDonald's? If you like McDonald's, go eat McDonald's. Enjoy your McDonald's. If you like burgers, go to Five Guys, go to In-N-Out, go to Burger King, go to Checkers, spread it around. But at the end of the day, just enjoy wrestling.
Yeah, and as you say, there is a lot of options on the menu now.
Yes.
You know, that have opened up. You know, so and there is options, and I think as wrestling fans, we kind of get lost in that. You know, there's this entitlement of, all right, I want to see what I want to see.
Yes.
But at the same time, there is many options. So there are other places that you can, you know, take dabble in and view. Like, you know, so New Japan, like you worked there, first IWGP champion.
Yes,
Very
I
first.
didn't want to interrupt him because he mentioned Japan like 11 times, but I wanted to listen. The first ever. Listen. Your current Intercontinental Champion right now, Tetsu Naito. The first one's right here, man. Shinsuke. The first one's right here, man. Right? Kota Ibushi. This one's right here, man. You know what I mean?
Very
Like
first
the
one.
very first one,
I
man.
think I'm the only professional wrestler to hold a submission victory over Shinsuke Nakamura.
Oh.
I think.
And since he retired, that's it. Shinsuke can't even get the receipt back. He can't no receipts, nigga. I got that out.
No, man. You know what? Really, I think it's a wonderful time, all things considered, because even though I say this all the time, I'm a classically trained professional wrestler, and everything evolves. When I came in the business and I started, you had, you know, ECW, the Attitude Era, and you had guys, oh, you guys don't know what you're doing. You're doing all those flips and crashing through tables and killing the business, and you're doing it wrong. And apparently, we weren't. Every generation says the next generation's doing it wrong.
Shout out to Joey Janela who just elevated that, man.
I'm not a fan of intergender wrestling, for example, because I come from a different mindset. I'm thinking, when I approach professional wrestling, the way I came to it, it's simulated combat.
Okay.
You don't have intergender combat.
No.
But there's this new generation that is approaching professional wrestling from, this is scripted entertainment. It's the video game, cosplay generation. So it's a different mindset.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say they're wrong, because thousands of people are buying tickets to see that, to participate in that. So this comes back to my original point. There's a market for it. If people are buying it, then do that. You know, go there, enjoy that. But I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, that's garbage, I hate it. I don't care for it. You know what? I don't watch it.
Okay.
As we always say on the podcast, wrestling is very subjective. You know,
Yes,
there's so many
exactly.
elements, and it's a very complex thing. This thing we call wrestling. It's you know.
It's oh,
So many
man.
shades of gray.
It's so many shades, and like CT was just about to say, it's complex but yet simplistic. This is the greatest form of theater. As a film student, there's no greater form of theater than watching wrestling.
Well, years ago in Tampa, there was a bunch of guys that I don't remember the details of it. I just remember there was a bunch of guys that somehow got booked on a tour that went over to China. And this is early 2000s. I don't remember who did it, but I just remember when some of the guys came back telling us that wherever the show was, it was a packed stadium or something. But these people didn't really know wrestling. So it must have been some sort of a paid show or something. But they had never seen American pro wrestling. So the guys went out there and they told the timeless tale of the good guy and the bad guy. Tiger Chung Lee famously said, I teach you secret to business. Babyface, hands forward. Heel, hands back. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. If you take two professional wrestlers that know how to tell a story, you can go in front of a bunch of people in China who've never seen wrestling and don't speak English, and in just a few minutes, you can condition them to know, this guy we boo, this guy we cheer. And if you do it right at the end, when the good guy wins, they're going to cheer because the hero overcame the obstacle.